Okay, voter fraud stuff. We've got these three guys. That's done. Electoral slate stuff. We need to do this. Clark stuff. We need to do this. Pence is done. J6 stuff. And then aftermath. It should be easy. Okay. Electoral slate fraud. This is probably one of the more thorough sections I did originally, so I hope I can just copy paste most of these. Should we read the Dominion OAN suit? No, I don't have time to read every single suit. I'm sure they're all really memey though. Do you appreciate BreadTube SAS channels more after you've written the script for the video, or did your opinion they're not changed much? No, I'm just working very inefficiently on this. I probably put in like a total of like 5 to maybe 10 hours maybe on all this. It just keeps happening like at the end of stream. I thought about this morning. I'm probably gonna start doing this tomorrow. I need to like very aggressively cut my stream at like 4 hours and just start working on this. Or like cut like clicking links or going over stuff or doing anything. It's just gonna nuke my viewership at the end of the day. I don't care though. Are there any other videos of false electors trying to go into the courthouse besides the Michigan one? It's a nice video. Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania. Wisconsin. And New Mexico. Actually, you know what? Fuck me. There's a better post for this. Somebody posted fake elector slates versus slaves. Okay. Real ones, Destiny, Reddit. Somebody posted like the fake ones next to the real ones. Anybody know which Reddit post this was? Somebody find it. Oh, nice. You're a god. Nice. Fuck. Cringe. December 13th. December 6th, Mark Meadows forwarded the November 18th memo. Chessbro to the Trump committee here. The fuck memo is this? November 18th memo from Chessbro. November 18th, Chessbro memo. Nice. Exactly. Shut up. Wait. Oh, these are two different memos. Jesus, nice. Okay. Okay, December 6th. This. I don't like vocals in my music, ever. Sequence of getting old. Okay.
The timing of a cell.
This would have been on the 14th? No, December 1st. Spawn Twitter following election results certification. Wait, what happened on the 14th? Wait, what are the important dates again? Hold on. November 3rd is the election. Is November 14th the certification of the vote? Or is it December 14th? States certify their electoral votes. No, it must be December 14th? I think it's December 14th. Oh my god. December 14th. Certify. Or maybe not certify, but send in. Yes, okay. It's December 14th. Yes, okay. And certifying the election is different then. Okay. This was on December 1st. Destiny's fall off needs to be studied. It's confirmed now. True. This is gonna be the one. More vocals snuck into this song? Why? Featuring... Oh, these all have vocal. What the fuck? Okay. All the pen stuff I think I have. Yes, I do. Okay. That's in a different thing. Yes, sick. Okay. That was... Oh my god. It's quick and easy. Okay, hold on. Okay, fake slates. Okay, what do I have for links saved here? I don't know, wait. First, let's go through... What do these motherfuckers have? Control F. Elector. Day one is probably just this, basically the executive.
The outcome of the election. And frankly, a year and a half later, I haven't seen anything to change my mind.
Okay, all of this is going to be repeated later on, I think. Control F. Electoral. No. Okay, here.
Right now.
I'm telling you what, I'm hearing the Pence. I hearing the Pence just caved.
No.
June
Is that
16th,
true? I'm hearing
13th,
reports that Pence caved.
June 9th.
I'm telling you, if Pence are going to get...
Will decide to...
Wait, what the fuck? 10 is at 30 minutes. That didn't go forward much.
By a gentleman named Kenneth Cheeseborough.
Is it really Cheeseborough? I thought it was Chesborough.
After the Electoral College met and cast their votes on December 14th, actually the day before they met, Kenneth Cheeseborough sent a memo to Rudy Giuliani, the president's lead outside counsel. Mr. Cheeseborough wrote to Mayor Giuliani
December 13th,
that the vice president is charged with, quote, making judgments about what to do if there are conflicting votes, close quote. Mr. Cheeseborough wrote that when the joint session of Congress got to Arizona in the alphabetical list of states, the vice president should not count the Biden votes, quote, because there are two slates of votes. His justification should not. Mr. Cheeseborough wrote that when the joint session of judgments about what to do if there are conflicting votes, that the vice president is charged with, quote, making judgments.
I don't know how much I want of like them just reading it if it's not me reading it. If I don't have like the original people speaking about it. This was on this was November 18th. Wait, no. Yes. No. Wait, when the fuck was the date on this? Wait, oh, wrong one. Before December 14th, December 13th. Oh, it's here. Yes, okay. J6 committee reading.
About what to do. Knowingly violated.
I don't want to hear you talk about it. I want to hear somebody else talk about it.
Dr. Eastman himself.
Okay, this is probably just going to be a summary of this section, I guess. What do I got other... Oh, wait, hold on. We got a guy. We got a dude. Who the fuck is this guy?
Judge Ludig, did the Trump electors in those 7 states who were not certified by any state authority have any legal significance?
Man, you really got to think about this one. If he would just say no,
Congresswoman, there was
cringe.
no support whatsoever in either the Constitution of the United States nor the laws of the United States for the Vice President, frankly, ever to count alternative electoral slates from the states that had not been officially certified by the designated state official in the Electoral Count Act of 1887. I did notice in the passage from Mr. Eastman's memorandum, and I took a note on it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but he said in that passage that there was both legal authority as well as historical precedent. I do know what Mr. Eastman was referring to when he said that there was historical precedent for doing so. He was incorrect. There was no historical precedent from the beginning of the founding in 1789.
Oh my God, how can this guy speak so slowly, even at 2x?
Even as mere historical precedent, as distinguished from legal precedent, would support pursuant to the Electoral Count Act of 1887. I would be glad to...
Judge, I know my colleagues will be pursuing that issue in more depth. And now,
electoral slates that...
7 states, end quote. The electors had no legal weight.
Okay. Where the fuck is this guy?
Referring to the fake election.
The United States, nor the law...
Hon. Oh, that probably stands for Honorable Judge Ludig. The fuck are you? Former judge of the United States Court of Appeals for the 4th Circuit. Cringe. Okay, that was 26.
quote, counting alternative...
27, 39 minutes. Who's out here?
amendment.
Stop hogging the floor, little bro. We need somebody different, somebody cooler, somebody funnier
Shall
than you. Nope.
count the electoral votes.
Cringe. 45, 46. When does somebody else pop up? Oh, we got Jacob. My man. Okay, hold on. 47, 36, 47. 47, 30. Okay.
As a lawyer who's analyzing a constitutional provision, you research. Gave your bottom line conclusion of the judge. Mr. Jacob, I have a question for you. I believe during your deposition before this committee, you said something to the effect of you read every word written about the 12th Amendment, the Electoral Count Act, and historical practice. I know in response to the chairman's earlier question, you gave your bottom line conclusion, but can you tell us a little bit about the process that you and your colleagues went through of researching this issue and what conclusion you came to after your thorough research?
So, you, as a lawyer who's analyzing a constitutional provision, you start with the constitutional text, you go to structure, you go to history. So we started with the text. We did not think that the text was quite as unambiguous as Judge Ludig indicated. In part, we had a constitutional crisis in 1876 because in that year, multiple slates of electors were certified by multiple slates. And when it came time to count those votes, the antecedent question of which ones had to be answered. That required the appointment of an independent commission. That commission had to resolve that question, and the purpose of the Electoral Count Act of 1887 had been to resolve those latent ambiguities. Now, I'm in complete agreement with Judge Ludig. It is unambiguous that the vice president does not have the authority to reject electors. There is no suggestion of any kind that it does. There is no mention of rejecting or objecting to electors anywhere in the 12th Amendment. And so the notion that the vice president could do that certainly is not in the text. But the problem that we had and that John Easton raised in our discussions was we had all seen that in Congress in 2000, in 2004, in 2016, there had been objections raised to various states. And those had even been debated in 2004. And so here you have an amendment that says nothing about objecting or rejecting, and yet we did have some recent practice of that happening within the terms of the Electoral Count Act. So we started with that text. And I recall in my discussion with the vice president, he said, I can't wait to go to heaven and meet the framers and tell them, the work that you did in putting together our Constitution is a work of genius. Thank you. It was divinely inspired. There is one sentence that I would like to talk to you a little bit about. So then we went to structure. And again, the vice president's first instinct here is so decisive on this question. There's just no way that the framers of the Constitution, who divided power and authority, who separated it out, who had broken away from George III and declared him to be a tyrant, there was no way that they would have put in the hands of one person the authority to determine who was going to be president of the United States.
True.
And then we went to history. We examined every single electoral vote count that had happened in Congress since the beginning of the country. We examined the Electoral Count Act. We examined practice under the Electoral Count Act. And critically, no vice president in 230 years of history had ever claimed to have that kind of authority, hadn't claimed authority to reject electoral votes, had not claimed authority to return electoral votes back to the states. In the entire history of the United States, not once had a joint session ever returned electoral votes back to the states to be counted. And in the crisis of 1876, Justice Bradley of the United States Supreme Court, who supplied the decisive final vote on that commission, had specifically looked at that question and said, first, the vice president clearly doesn't have authority to decide anything. And by the way, also does not have authority to conduct an investigation by sending things back out for a public look at things. So the history was absolutely decisive. And again, part of my discussion with Mr. Eastman was, if you were right, don't you think Al Gore might have liked to have known in 2000 that he had authority to just declare himself president of the United States? Did you think that the Democrat lawyers just didn't think of this very obvious quirk that he could use to do that? And of course, he acknowledged Al Gore did not and should not have had that authority at that point in time. But so.
Ooh, that's kind of a herder.
But so text, structure, history, I think what we had was some ambiguous text that common sense and structure would tell you the answer cannot possibly be that the vice president has that authority. As the committee already played the vice president's remarks, there's almost no idea more un-American than the notion that any one person would choose the American president, and then unbroken historical practice for 230 years that the vice president did not have such an authority.
Thank you. I reserve the remainder of my time. Mr. Jacob, you weren't the only one who knew that the
No one cares. 38, 39. We're at 52 minutes. Ooh, we got more talkers. Who else is whoa, what? What is all this?
legal theory was wrong, though. Here's what various advisors to the president thought about that theory.
You've been clear repeatedly with Mr. Meadows about you and the vice president having a different view about his authority on January 6th.
I believe I had.
Did Mr. Meadows ever explicitly or tacitly agree with you or say, yeah, that makes sense, okay?
Is this Short? Oh, Mark Short, yeah.
I believe that that Mark did.
Yeah, short and bald. Yikes.
Agree.
What makes you say that?
I believe that that Mark did agree.
What makes you say that?
I believe that's what he told me. But as I mentioned, I think Mark had told so many people so many different things that it was not something that that I would necessarily accept as, okay, well, that means that's resolved.
I say, tell me more what he told you on this topic.
Well, I think it was that, the vice president doesn't have any broader role. And I think he was understanding of that.
So despite the fact that he may have said other things to the president or others, to you, he said he understands the vice president has no role.
Yes.
Okay. Did he say that to you several times?
A couple times.
Before January 6th?
Yes.
The way it was communicated to me was that
Jason Miller. More like Jason never mind. Okay, Jason Miller. I don't know where I was going with that. I'm sorry.
Pacivaloni thought the idea was nutty and had at one point confronted. Thought the idea. The way it was communicated to me was that Pacivaloni
Is it Pat Cipollone or Cipollone? I feel like I've heard his name pronounced 7 different ways.
thought the idea was nutty and had at one point Pacivaloni thought the idea was nutty and had at one point confronted Eastman basically with the same sentiment.
Pat expressed his admiration for the vice president's actions on the day of the 6th and said that he concurred with the legal analysis that our team had put together to reach that point.
It made no sense to me that in all the protections that were built into the Constitution for a president to get elected and steps that had to be taken, that the power to choose the next president would be sitting with the vice president.
Do you know if Mr. Clark or Mr. Morgan thought about that, Mr. Eastman's advice?
Yeah, they thought he was crazy.
Do you know if they ever?
Who is this guy?
Do
Do you know if Mr. Clark or Mr. Morgan, Mr. Morgan, thought about that, Mr. Eastman's advice? Yeah, they thought he was crazy.
Is that Hirschman talking still?
Do you know if they ever expressed an opinion on whether they thought the vice president had the power that John Eastman said he did? I know for a fact I've heard both say that his...
Oh, no, Jason Miller gun. Bro, why are you wearing a mask on Zoom? You know you can't get a virus on the internet. Sorry.
Power that John Eastman said he did. I know for a fact I've heard both say that his theory was crazy, that there was... He did. Do you know if they ever expressed an opinion about that, thought about that? Clark or Mr. Morgan, Mr. Morgan, thought about that, Mr. Eastman's advice? Yeah, they thought he was crazy. Morgan.
Fuck, which one is Morgan? He spoke to Morgan. Fuck, Greg, Jake. Wait, who is Morgan again? Fuck, I had this name out. Morgan, January 6th. Who is this guy? Morgan. Was it Bob Morgan? Where are there? Usually I at least have one or two guys that have autistic knowledge and chat of this shit. Morgan. Oh, he's in my notes somewhere, right? Morgan. Oh, Matthew Morgan.
He's sitting with the vice president.
Do you know if Mr. Clark or Mr. Morgan, Mr. Morgan?
Okay, did Mr. Clark or Mr. Morgan? I think that... Wait, who's Mr. Clark here? It's not, this isn't Jeffrey Clark, right? This is somebody different? Morgan. Maybe it is.
Do you know if Mr. Clark or Mr. Morgan, Mr. Morgan, thought about that, Mr. Eastman's advice? Yeah, they thought he was crazy. Do you know if they ever expressed an opinion on whether they thought the vice president had the power that John Eastman said he did? I know for a fact I've heard both say that his theory was crazy, that there was no validity to it in any way, shape, or form. And did they express that before January 6th? Yes. To whom? I think anyone who would listen.
Okay, what were your prior interactions with Eastman?
He described for me...
Clark here can't be Jeffrey Clark. It's got to be a different Clark associated with the White House counsel or something. Clark and Morgan. I don't know who this Clark is, though. Fuck. Morgan. It's Matthew Morgan for sure. The Clark and Matthew Morgan.
What he...
Anyone who would listen?
Okay, what were your prior interactions with Eastman?
He described for me what he thought the ambiguity was in the statute, and he was walking through it at that time. And I said, hold on a second, I want to understand what you're saying. You're saying that you believe the vice president, acting as president of the Senate, can be the sole decision maker as to, or your theory, who becomes the next president of the United States? And he said, yes. And I said, are you out of your effing mind? Right? And that was pretty blunt. I said, you're completely crazy. I said, you're going to turn around and tell 78 plus million people in this country that your theory is this is how you're going to invalidate their votes because you think the election was stolen. And I said, they're not going to tolerate that. He said, you're going to cause riots in the streets. And he said, words to the effect of, there's been violence in the history of our country to protect the democracy or protect the republic.
In fact, there was a risk that the lawyers in the White House counsel's office would resign. For example, Fox News host Sean Hannity expressed concern that the...
Justin R. Clark. Is that it? Justin R. Clark, former director of the White House Office of Public Engagement. Oh, do you think that's it? Matthew. Okay, we'll put that in. Wait. Under the Trump admin. Okay, yeah, cool. Okay. Okay, that was at 50. We got up to 56.
The entire White House counsel's office could quit. As you can see from these texts, Mr. Hannity wrote to White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows that, quote, we can't lose the entire White House counsel's office.
I should throw this screenshot in under J6. Lose entire WH councils. Lose entire WH. $560, $561. Mark Meadows Productions. Mark Meadows got a lot of juicy text messages. This is from Sean Hannity. I got the base fired. I don't know who that one's from. Wait. 560 and... Thoughts on people using Python for data analysis when R is a much better language for it? Python is still pretty good, and there's a lot of support for it, so why do something more obscure or esoteric like R when Python can get the job done, and you can find easier help? Oh, okay. Gotta make up shit. I have no idea. I don't know what any of those things are. Don't ever take any advice I say on anything related to programming. I'm just making shit up all the time. Damn. Okay, I don't need this. Right? I don't think I need this. Stop. We don't need this.
Mind on that.
Wait. Don't need you? Okay.
Do not see January 6th happening the way he is being told. A few days later, on January 5th, Mr. Hannity wrote to Mr. Meadows that, quote, "I'm very worried the next 48 hours. Hence pressure, White House counsel will leave." While Sean Hannity was apparently very concerned about the possibility that the White House counsel would resign in protest of the president's effort to force the vice president to violate the Constitution, some others close to the president were more dismissive of the White House counsel's position. Here's what Trump's son-in-law and senior advisor Jared Kushner said during his deposition regarding the White House counsel Pat Cipollone's threats to resign.
Jared, are you aware of instances where Pat Cipollone threatened to resign?
I kind of, like I said, my interest at that time was on trying to get as many pardons done. And I know that, he was always, him and the team were always saying, oh, we're going to resign, we're not going to be here if this happens, if that happens. So I kind of picked it up to just be whining, to be honest with you.
The president's own lead outside counsel, Rudy Giuliani, also seemed to concede that the vice president did not have the authority to decide the outcome of the election or send it back to the states. Here's what White House attorney Eric Hirschman said about his call with Mayor Giuliani on the morning of the 6th.
The morning of January 6th, I think he called me out of the blue, right? And I was like getting dressed. And we had an intellectual discussion about Eastman's, I don't know if it's Eastman's theory per se, but the VP's role. And he was asking me my view, analysis, and then the practical implications of it. And when we finished, he said, like, I believe that, you're probably right. I think he thought we're done that it would be something he'd have to consider if he was sitting on the bench. But he'd probably come down in that, you couldn't interpret it or sustain the argument long term.
Of course, the fact that Mayor Giuliani seemed to admit that the theory was wrong.
An intellectual discussion with Giuliani, he's saying. He's joking. Hirschman is just an asshole. He's just very funny with how he says it, but he's just being sarcastic. We had an intellectual discussion.
He was asking me my view of Eastman's theory, and we had an intellectual discussion about something he'd have to consider if he was sitting on the bench.
That's how he talks.
But he'd probably come down in that, you couldn't interpret it or sustain the argument long term.
Of course, the fact that Mayor Giuliani seemed to admit that the theory was wrong did not stop him from going before the crowd just a few hours later on January 6th and saying the exact opposite. Here's Mayor Giuliani's speech at the Ellipse rally on January 6th.
We're here just very briefly to make a very important 2 points. Number one, every single thing that has been outlined as the plan for today is perfectly legal. I have Professor Eastman here with me to say a few words about that. He's one of the preeminent constitutional scholars in the United States. It is perfectly appropriate, given the questionable constitutionality of the Election Counting Act of 1887, that the Vice President can cast it aside, and he can do what a president called Jefferson did when he was Vice President. He can decide on the validity of these crooked ballots, or he can send it back to the legislatures, give them 5 to 10 days to finally finish the work.
And here's what Dr. Eastman said in his speech at the Ellipse on January 6th.
And all we are demanding of Vice President Pence is this afternoon at 1 o'clock, he let the legislatures of the state look into this so we get to the bottom of it and the American people know whether we have control of the direction of our government or not.
Clappa.
Even Dr. Eastman knew his theory didn't hold water. Mr. Jacob, you discussed and even debated this theory at length with Dr. Eastman. Did Dr. Eastman ever tell you what he thought the U.S. Supreme Court would do if it had to decide this issue? He did this theory at length with Dr. Eastman. Did Dr. Eastman ever tell you what he thought the U.S. Supreme Court would do if it had to decide this issue?
Yes. We had an extended discussion, an hour and a half to 2 hours on January 5th. And when I pressed him on the point, I said, John, if the Vice President did what you were asking him to do, we would lose 9-0 in the Supreme Court, wouldn't we? And he initially started, well, I think maybe we would lose only 7-2. And after some further discussion, acknowledged, well, yeah, you're right, we would lose 9-0.
I appreciate that. In our investigation, the Select Committee has obtained evidence suggesting that Dr. Eastman never really believed his own theory. Let me explain. On the screen, you can see a draft letter to the President from October 2020. In this letter, an idea was proposed that the Vice President could determine which electors to count at the joint session of Congress. But the person writing in blue eviscerates that argument. The person who wrote the comments in blue wrote, quote, the 12th Amendment only says that the President of the Senate opens the ballots in the joint session and then, in the passive voice, that the votes shall then be counted. The comments in blue further state, nowhere does it suggest that the President of the Senate gets to make the determination on his own. Judge Ludig, does it surprise you that the author of those comments in blue was in fact John Eastman?
Wait, what? Wait, when? Oh, October 11th, 2020. August, September, October, November. Damn, what happened? This was before Chess Bros suggestions. Wait, what? Wait, fuck. What letter is this? Okay, October 11th, 2020. Need this. This is a good one. October 11th. 11th of. Wait, fuck. Control F opens the ballots. 149. Fuck. Eastman memo to President Trump. Chapman University. Production. Chapman. Select files. Control F. PDF. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Analysis of one pivotal post-election scenario and I provided recommendations below so that your legal team may better prepare you to secure your election victory. Hello, I am a senior fellow at the Chapman Institute and a constitutional scholar at Chapman University with 25 years of experience in constitutional law, including testimony before the Florida legislature during the Bush v. Gore election. I contributed to the 79 Days to Inauguration Task Force Report, a project of the Claremont Institute and the Texas Public Policy Foundation that's recently provided you. Newt Gingrich previously shared with you an email from Mr. Colbert, director, what an unfortunately coincidental last name, director of a public policy organization regarding a separate heritage and spiritual... focus on the crucial legal actions that Trump and Republicans must take in a size of 2-week time frame. During the joint session of Congress on January 6th, to count the electoral votes, President of the Senate had to receive multiple certificates of vote from several battleground states. Could have sent separately timed, authoritative, inclusive certificates to disputes over Congress. Guidance from the U.S. Constitution and statutes regarding Trump campaign and Republicans must proactively take charge of the situation to establish a path to achieve victory. Democrats win by disruption, delay, and default. The U.S. Supreme Court is the only appropriate body to provide clarification, guidance, and resolution of these issues. A proposed bipartisan commission, including never Trump Republicans, to guide the resolution of these issues would be fraught with problems. We recommend that the Trump campaign and Republicans seek injunctions from the court ordering 1, that the President of the Senate decides authoritatively what certificates from the states to open and what electoral votes are counted under the 12th Amendment. Several problems here. First, I don't think this qualifies as an exercise of the Supreme Court's original jurisdiction, so a case would have to be brought first in the D.C. District Court. Holy shit. Oh, this is Eastman before his brain melts. Wait, what happened? What changed his mind? So Eastman is critiquing this email? As January 6th, Chinese spent others devised a plan whereby Vice President Harris would declare the certain Chinese knew before proposing this plan that it was not legal indeed in a pre-election document discussing Congress's specifically disagree with the colleague's proposed argument that the Vice President had the power to choose. What was this? Dear Mr. President, I'm a senior fellow. I wonder why he was even editing this. Most respectfully, John C. Eastman, Bruce Colbert. First, I don't think this qualifies as an exercise of the Supreme Court's original jurisdiction. The injunctions arise from comments raised in the article preparing for a disputed presidential election, exercise an election, they indicate a direct path to the Supreme Court. I don't agree with this. The 12th Amendment only says that the President of the Senate opens the ballots in joint session. What you are citing is one half of the arguments presented in the article, preparing for a disputed presidential election. Instruction the Senate to resolve these opposing arguments. Okay, I don't agree with this either. Article 2 says the electors are to be appointed in such a manner as the legislature may direct, but I don't think that entitles the legislature to change the rules after the election and appoint a different slate of electors in a manner different than what was in play. True. Wait, how do we know this blue writing is Eastman? This anticipates the same rules that were in place on election day. As you mentioned, as in a situation, again, I don't think this is the right source. I don't think a court is going to give us such an order. Hassan is going on another Destiny schizo rant. Based?
His only point is I like Divorcelli. I know the Divorcelli community is.
Uh-oh.
They used to have something, you know. They used to at least like know how to get on my nerves. They've completely lost that. They are not sending their best anymore. What did Tim Pool do? Tim Pool got $400,000 a month from the Russian government to consistently say insane shit like Ukraine is the #1 enemy of the United States. Tim Pool, as far as I know, never actively fundraised for Ukrainians in the beginning of the unjustifiable invasion.
Why is Hassan comparing himself to Tim Pool now?
I don't think he ever considered
is that what he's
to be
doing?
Unjustifiable. I did. That's precisely the reason why the only thing you have here is me using Ukrainian sources, including Zelensky's own admission that he did not think that Russia would invade Ukraine as an own, demonstrating that you do not give a fuck about Ukrainians at all. And the tens of millions of people that have left Ukraine, all of the fucking towns that have now been reduced to rubble with Russian artillery and Russian bombing campaigns.
Does it surprise you?
None of that is meaningful to you at all because you chose to come to the community of a person who fundraised hundreds of thousands of dollars for Ukrainians to say, remember when you thought Russia would be too insane to actually invade Ukraine? That is where you're at. You don't care about anything. You're not a serious person. You don't even have your own personal perspective on the matter. You're just trying to repeat someone else's talking points. And unfortunately for you, you're not even doing a good job at repeating said talking points. Not only that, but then you also followed through on your constant putting down of the government and anything they do involving Israel. Okay? So he got paid to push disinformation and you were literally tricked for free speech. I was not tricked. My positions on this conflict has not changed. I think that Russia is engaging in an unjustifiable conquest in Ukraine. It's completely unjustifiable. It is immoral. It is repugnant. Okay? I fear that even the Destiny community is going to eat your ass for the awful fucking defense that you tried to launch here. No matter how much they hate me, okay, they still probably don't want to look like a fucking idiotic baboon in the way that you have demonstrated this community so far. Okay?
Good job. Okay, hold on. I need to listen to more of this.
Votes shall then be counted. The comments in blue further state, nowhere does it suggest that the President of the Senate gets to make the determination on his own. Yes, it does, Congressman. But let me, watching this unfold, let me try to unpack what was at the root of what I have called the blueprint to overturn the 2020 election. And it is this. And I had foreshadowed this answer in my earlier testimony to Congresswoman Cheney. Mr. Eastman, from the beginning, said to the President that there was both legal as well as historical precedent for the Vice President to overturn the election. And what we've heard today, I believe, is what happened within the White House and elsewhere, as all the players, led by Mr. Eastman.
Holy shit, you
got wrapped around
are
the
so
axle
slow. What the fuck?
by the historical evidence claim by Mr. Eastman. Let me explain very simply. This is what I said would require a digression that I would be glad to undertake if you wished. In short,
yes,
if I had been advising the Vice President of the United States on January 6th, and even if then Vice President Jefferson and even then Vice President John Adams and even then Vice President Richard Nixon had done exactly
what does he sound like on times one?
what the President of the United States wanted his Vice President to do, I would have laid my body across the road before I would have let the Vice President overturn the 2020 election on the basis of that historical precedent. But what this body needs to know, and now America needs to know, is that that was the centerpiece of the plan to overturn the 2020 election. It was the historical precedent in the years, and with the vice presidents that I named, as Congressman Raskin understands well. And the effort by Mr. Eastman and others was to drive that historical precedent up to and under that single sentence, single pristine sentence in the 12th Amendment to the United States Constitution, taking advantage of, if you will, what many
oh my
have said
God,
would overturn the 2020
get to
election
the point, lil bro,
by accepting non-certified state electoral votes. But they would have made arguments as to some.
Okay, I don't care what you're pissing me off. Okay, 51, 52, 109. Give me somebody new. I need to see a new guy. Who is that? Oh my God, it's Biden.
At the time. But he never suggested that he could simply declare himself the winner of the 2000 election when he presided over the counting of the electoral votes. Let's hear what Vice President Gore said when he described the situation he faced in 2000.
Importance of the United States of America in all of human history. In Lincoln's phrase, we still are the last best hope of humankind. And the choice between one's own disappointment in your personal career and upholding the noble traditions of America's democracy, it's a pretty easy choice when it comes down to it.
Mr. Jacob, did Dr. Eastman say whether he would want other vice presidents such as Al Gore after the 2000 election or Kamala Harris after the 2024 election to have the power to decide the outcome of the election?
So this was one of the many points that we discussed on January 5th. He had come into that meeting trying to persuade us that there was some validity to his theory. I viewed it as my objective to persuade him to acknowledge he was just wrong. And I thought this had to be one of the most powerful arguments. I mean, John, back in 2000, you weren't jumping up and saying Al Gore had this authority to do that. You would not want Kamala Harris to be able to exercise that kind of authority in 2024 when I hope Republicans will win the election. And I know you hope that too, John. And he said, absolutely. Al Gore did not have a basis to do it in 2000. Kamala Harris shouldn't be able to do it in 2024, but I think you should do it today.
Mark Short told the Select Committee that Vice President Pence consulted with one of his predecessors, Vice President Dan Quayle, regarding the role of the Vice President. Vice President Quayle confirmed Pence's view that the role was purely ceremonial. Mr. Short also told the committee that he, Mr. Short, received a call from former House Speaker Paul Ryan. Here's Mr. Short's description of his conversation with Speaker Ryan.
Speaker Ryan wanted to call and say, you don't have any greater authority. And I said, Mr. Speaker, Mike, he doesn't, he recognizes that. And we sort of laughed about it, and he said, I get it. And he later spoke to the Vice President to, I think, have the same conversation.
What the fuck did you say? Hold on.
Speaker Ryan wanted to call and say, you don't have any greater authority. And I said to him, Mr. Speaker, Mike, he doesn't, he recognizes that. And we sort of laughed about it, and he said, I get it. And he later spoke to the Vice President to, I think, have the same conversation.
Okay.
Fortunately for
the vice president to, be recognized. You don't have any greater.
What? Paul Ryan? Wait. It was the House Speaker Paul Ryan. Oh yeah, old guy, right? Like he wasn't Speaker for a long time, right? Under was he Speaker through to the end of the term? Until 2019. Okay. I remember Paul Ryan's fights with Trump. Oh my God. What a time that was. I feel like Paul Ryan fighting with Trump was when you first began to see the break from Trump with the GOP. That was like the first warning bells of like, uh-oh, hold on. What's going on here? What's going on? Why are we fighting with Paul Ryan? Wasn't that guy... Am I wrong? I feel like at one point in time, I feel like Paul Ryan was like a star of the future Republican Party or something. People are saying you knew about the Russia money stuff because Joshua Eagle said you made the comments with Lauren months ago when I'm pretty sure it was years ago. Who the fuck is Joshua Eagle? Comments. I've probably made these comments for years, haven't I? Wasn't he Romney's VP nomination? Oh, shit. Yeah, I thought Paul Ryan was supposed to be a big up-and-comer. And then he just got obliterated after Trump and just, like, peaced.
Authority. And I said to him, Mr. Speaker, Mike, he doesn't, he recognizes that. And we sort of laughed about it, and he said, I get it. And he later spoke to the vice president, too, to, I think, have the same conversation.
Fortunately for the fate of our republic, Vice President Pence refused to go along with President Trump's demands that he determine the outcome of the presidential election. Mr. Jacob.
No one cares, bro. Wait.
What was the vice president's reaction when you discussed with him the theory that the vice president could decide the outcome of the election?
Congressman, as I testified, the vice president's first instinct was that there was no way that any one person, particularly the vice president who is on the ticket and has a...
Wait.
There was... Congressman, as I testified, the vice president's first instinct was that there was no way that any one person, particularly the vice president who is on the ticket and has a vested outcome in the election, could possibly have the authority to decide it by rejecting electors or to decisively alter the outcome by suspending the joint session for the first time in history in order to try to get a different outcome from state legislatures.
Good for you.
Despite the fact that the vice president had a strongly held and correct view that he could not decide the outcome of the election, President Trump launched a multi-week campaign of both public and private pressure to get the Vice President Mike Pence to violate the Constitution.
Sounds based.
Here are some examples of the intense pressure the Vice President faced from all sides and what his Chief of Staff thought of it.
And I hope Mike Pence comes through for us, I have to tell you. I hope that our great Vice President, I won't like him quite as much.
To the President, was it your impression that the Vice President had directly conveyed his position on these issues to the President, not just to the world through a dear colleague letter, but directly to President Trump?
Many times.
And had been consistent in conveying his position to the President?
Very consistent.
I am aware of the fact that the President was upset with the way Pence acted. Are we to assume that this is going to... The President was upset.
Is there just somebody walking around in his background? His lawyer's just like bored?
With the way Pence acted.
It's like when an NPC loads in the background and they like T-pose before they like walk to their assigned location or whatever, where they're scripted.
With the way Pence acted. Are we to assume that this is going to be a climactic battle?
Well, I think a lot of that depends on the courage and the spine of the individuals involved.
That'd be a nice way to say a guy named Vice President Mike Pence?
We already got this.
Yes. I think we've been clear as to what the Vice President's role was. I think the Vice President been clear with the President. I think I've been clear with Mark Meadows.
I think the Vice President is going to throw down tomorrow and do the right thing because, Lou, like I said before, this is a time for choosing. People are going to look back at this moment tomorrow and...
Pat Cipollone.
These guys are the same guy? Am I having a faceblind moment? What the fuck? Interesting.
Remember where every single one of their elected officials were. Did they vote for the rule of law and getting these elections right, or did they give it away to the Democrats and the people who cheated and stole their way through this election?
Definitely when I got back into town, as talk say like the 5th and the 6th, the president was, all the attention was on what Mike would do or what Mike wouldn't do.
The Vice President really was not wavering in his commitment to what his responsibility was. And so, yeah, was it painful? Sure.
The president's pressure campaign started in December For example, although the vice president made his views clearly and unmistakably known to the president and others in the White House, on December 23rd, President Trump retweeted a memo from an individual named Ivan Reichlin entitled Operation Pence Card that called on the vice president to refuse the Electoral College votes from certain states that had certified Joe Biden as
Not
the winner.
Operation Pence Card.
President Trump started his pressure campaign in December.
Oh, no.
He dialed up the pressure as January 6th approached.
Okay. Jacob, I don't care about you anymore. I don't need your testimony.
Reiterate, he told you, maybe this was an...
Ask you a more general question. Did the vice president ever waver in his position that he could not unilaterally decide which electors to accept?
The vice president never budged from the position that I have described as his first instinct, which was that it just made no sense from everything that he knew and had studied about our Constitution that one person would have that kind of authority.
And did the vice president ever waver in his position that he could not delay certification and send it back to the states?
No, he did not.
Did Dr. Eastman admit in front of the president that his proposal would violate the Electoral Count Act?
So during that meeting on the 4th, I think I raised the problem that both of Mr. Eastman's proposals would violate several provisions of the Electoral Count Act. Mr. Eastman acknowledged that that was the case, that even what he viewed as the more politically palatable option would violate several provisions, but he thought that we could do so because in his view the Electoral Count Act was unconstitutional, and when I raised concerns that that position would likely lose in court, his view was that the court simply wouldn't get involved. They would invoke the political question doctrine, and therefore we could have some comfort proceeding with that path.
Mr. Wood?
But just to reiterate, he told you, maybe this was in a later conversation, but he told you at some point that if, in fact, the issue ever got to the Supreme Court, his theory would lose 9-0, correct?
The next morning, starting around 11 or 11:30, we met for an hour and a half to 2 hours, and in that meeting, I've already described the text, structure, history conversation, but we started walking through all of that, and I said, so John, basically what you have is some text that may be a little bit ambiguous, but then nothing else that would support it, including the fact that nobody would ever want that to be the rule. Wouldn't we lose 9-0 in the Supreme Court? And again, he initially started, well, maybe you'd only lose 7-2, but ultimately acknowledged that no, we would lose 9-0. No judge would support his argument.
Okay, this is a better one for that.
After his meeting with the vice president, Donald Trump flew to Georgia for a rally in support of the Republican candidates in the United States Senate runoff. Even though the vice president had been steadfast in resisting...
No, Trump is even more based. Okay, stop hogging the floor. 119. Any other... Elector slates. I want elector slate people. Ooh, damn, bro, this guy talks so much. Wait. Nope, it's still him. Oh. When does the next guy come up? Oh, we come back. 56. About 2 hours. Okay, that might be all the rest we need from this.
States to weigh in and resolve it, and then they'll send back the Trump slates of electors, and the people will be able to accept that. And courts stay out of it. Will get involved in this. And I know in the Supreme Court, he again tried to say, but I don't think the courts will get involved in this. They'll invoke the political question doctrine, and so if the courts stay out of it, that will mean that we'll have the 10 days for the states to weigh in and resolve it, and then they'll send back the Trump slates of electors, and the people will be able to accept that. And I expressed my vociferous disagreement with that point. I did not think that this was a political question. Among other things, if the courts did not step in to resolve this, there was nobody else to resolve it. You would be in a situation where you had a standoff between the President of the United States and, counterfactually, the Vice President of the United States, saying that we've exercised authorities that constitutionally we think we have, by which we have...
And then they'd have to settle it in trial by combat, one-on-one.
...deemed ourselves the winners of the election. You would have an opposed House and Senate disagreeing with that. You would have state legislatures that, to that point, I mean, Republican leaders across those legislatures had put out statements, and we collected these for the vice president as well, that the people had spoken in their states and that they had no intention of reversing the outcome of the election. We did receive some signed letters that Mr. Eastman forwarded us by minorities of leaders in those states.
Imagine caring about minorities. Yikes. Yikes, Mr. Jacob. Not a good look for you, fam.
But no state had any legislative house that indicated that it had any interest in it. So you would have had just an unprecedented constitutional jump ball situation with that standoff. And as I expressed to him, that issue might well then have to be decided in the streets. Because if we can't work it out politically, we've already seen how charged up people are about this election. And so it would be a...
Okay, we get it, little bro.
Describes chaos.
And that was how the meeting concluded.
But you just described a terrifying scenario. Sounds like there could have been chaos.
And sending out a baldly false statement about being in alignment, purported alignment with the vice president, despite all of the predicate that you indicated had gone before of their respective positions. Is that effectively what happened?
I interpret the statement as false. I'll let you figure out who sent it out.
When Mark Short contacted you, he was upset. Is that what you said?
He clearly was not pleased.
Tell us what he said. He was upset. Is that what
you figure out who sent it out?
When Mark Short contacted you, he was upset. Is that what you said?
He clearly was not pleased.
Tell us what he said.
What's the process for putting out a statement for a meeting where only 2 people were in the room?
Did he ask you to retract the statement?
No, I think it went right to what's the process for putting out a statement for a meeting when only 2 people were in the room.
And he clearly disagreed with the substance, though, right? Because he said the vice president doesn't agree with this.
I'm trying to think what exactly he said. I mean, the tone was very clearly that he used some language to strongly infer that the vice president disagreed with that take. I don't remember what that language was.
Did he dictate the statement?
He dictated most of it. I mean, typically on these, I might have a couple of wording suggestions, or maybe I, have a sentence or a rough framework or something of that. But I know with specificity on this one that it was me and him on the phone talking through it, and ultimately the way this came out was the way that he wanted to.
The dispute between the president and the vice president had grown.
Okay, I don't need this. The VP section already got all this.